Hello and welcome to Locator Gaming. I'm Zach, and as you can probably see, I have some Isofarian Guard stuff out on the table. The reason I have this stuff out here is I wanted to do a little bit of an update video for this particular game series on my channel. I started a gameplay run-through of this, but during that run-through, I found out that there was going to be some changes and some new stuff added to the game. And I play these campaign games, number 1 for the gameplay, but also number 2 for the story. And I kind of want to wait for the new stuff and the additions and things to come out before I do that first complete run through of the campaign. I don't want to spoil the story for myself. I also got a chance to meet the team at Gen Con and talk to them a little bit about the updates, which even got me more excited about the changes that are coming to this game. So what I thought I would do is do a little video, and I mostly on my channel just kind of live play things. So it's going to be more of a discussion format. I want to talk about a brief overview of the gameplay and then talk about the updates. It's not going to be all the rules and everything. It's going to be super brief because I think a little discussion on the gameplay will add some relevancy to the update discussion. So stick around and I'll go through some of the gameplay and some of the updates. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Isofarian Guard, the gameplay and the components and other parts that I've got laid out to show you here that I think will, like I said earlier, add some relevancy to the update and new stuff discussion later. So I'm going to zoom in on the board right here because the main part of this is it's a narrative story-driven game, and you're going to have some missions and things to be going towards out here on the board. So you move from node to node, and every time you move to a new node, you're going to be drawing from a bag. And I have the chips out here that you can see. There's some skull chips and some compass chips, so they'll be in this bag, and you draw them out. If you draw a skull chip, you're going to have an encounter with some type of enemy, and if you draw one of the compass chips, then you put a little tracker token on the event cards. And when you get a certain number of tracker tokens, you might draw an event card. I don't really want to show any of the event cards up close, but I keep mine in this like business card holder. And when I get a little tracker token, I put them in front of the set that needs it. But like I said earlier, you'll be moving around the board. Every time you move, you draw a chip. You might be going towards some of these other chips. There could be quest that you need to do there, or there could be a place that kicks off a new quest. And there's also towns to visit. So when you're moving along the board, if you go into one of these larger towns, then you take one of these other little boards and you're moving around on one of these little boards. And inside these towns on your trip, you can go to the inn to either rest or to get some missions. You can go to like the market to buy stuff, or there also might be another story event or something in one of these little towns. There's some side quests you can get. There's all kinds of things you can do in these towns. And like I said, if you draw a skull from there, you're going to have an encounter, or you're going to have a battle. So there's books that show who you're going to be fighting depending upon where you are in the world. And you'll get one of these little battle boards out, and you put your particular monster that you're fighting, and then they're going to have an AI deck. And you'll put their health, their strength, their defense here. They'll get some action cubes, just like you have action cubes. And you'll draw an AI card and it will do things. And you will also be fighting them. When you defeat them, you get some resources like these plane striders here. If you defeat them, you get Lux, which is like experience, and a rough leather. Now the rough leather and other types of resources and things that you get from other enemies, or you also might get some kind of resources from harvesting or mining around the map, which is another thing you can do later on in the game. They're all going to go into your satchel here. And this satchel is an important thing to see when we talk about the updates later. So you can see there are 4 slots here for this particular character. And you're almost always going to have two characters. At the very beginning of the game, you have one. Don't want to spoil too much in case you're new to the game, but you're going to start with one. Shortly thereafter, you'll have two, and then two from there on. I think that's at least my understanding. And then looking at the character here, they also have a bag because the combat in this game is essentially a bag building type of combat. You put stuff into your bag based upon your strength and your defense, and then also based upon your items and things. And you might have an item that has slots for these stones to go in. And these stones, like this particular one, this garnet here, adds another double sword chip to your bag. And as you can see, just to show you one item, it has a blank spot for a stone right there. So as you're going through the game, like I said, you'll collect resources and things from around the world and from defeating enemies, and you might be able to craft new stuff, which has better stats, more slots for stones, and that can add new chips to your bag. Also, when you're going through combat, you're going to have these abilities, and this is one of the things that I really enjoy about the game, is these abilities and some of the strategic choices that you have to make with these particular abilities, because some of these abilities add stuff to your bag. For example, this guard ability, it adds a defense to Grigory's bag. And they can do all kinds of things. So there's extra defense, there's extra attack power, there's health that can get added to your bag. And what I was mentioning with the strategic decisions is the bags don't clear from battle to battle. So sometimes I find myself wanting to do more of these actions to get more stuff in my bag, even though the enemy I'm facing might be really low on hit points. Instead of just ending the fight, I'm like, let me add some more stuff to my bag so that when I get to the next fight, I have more positive chips in my bag that I can potentially draw in that particular fight. So another thing to look at here with these is you have an item spot here, and in the first version of the game, if you used an item, that was it. But we'll talk about a change to this in the update section of the video a little bit later. And there's also these abilities that are extremely powerful and that come with those particular stones that get added to your items. Like this one, for example, is cross slash. You attack all enemies with a +1 to your damage. And these get tracked if they've been used by these little stones that you move along throughout the gameplay. Beating enemies gives you experience. It can also give you gold, which is tracked on this particular dial, or this one is the one for the experience, or like I said, resources. You also have, which is important to note for the updates also, is action points. They're tracked by these particular cubes. The amount of action points that you have at the start of your turn dictates how many chips you get to draw from the bag, and it also dictates how many actions you get to do on your turn. There are things that you can do that will give you temporary action points, which are tracked by these green cubes. So as you're going through a fight, you might have some green cubes added. So now instead of only 2 chips from the bag, I can draw 4. As I use them, they get moved down, but at the end of the round, they'll get refreshed back up to here. There are some important things with the changes in the updates that go along with action points as well. That's pretty much a very, very brief overview. There is, like I said, some great story that goes along with this game. But I think that those are the important things to note for gameplay when we get to the updates. Okay, now I want to get into some of the things that have me excited about the updates for this game and the reason why I wanted to make this particular video. If you want to read some of these things straight from the creators themselves, you can go look at Kickstarter, Update 69 and Update 70. They talk about some of these particular changes and other things that they're doing in the upcoming campaign that's going to be running on Gamefound, which is coming September 5th, 2023. So it's very soon after when I'm recording this video. Okay, so one of the things that I also wanted to talk about is that they are going to have an upgrade kit available. So you don't have to order a complete new game, although there's a lot of the stuff that's being reprinted. It might feel like a complete new game when you get the box. I'm sure it's going to be extremely heavy. You can just get the upgrade kit if you just want the new stuff and the changed stuff. One of the things that's going to be changing is a rewrite of all the books. You can see here I have on the table a lot of books, and I also even have the reference sheet like off to the side. There's a lot of material here. And they mention things like a lot of the page references are changing, and there's rules to be added to the rule book because of things that they're adding. So it's just going to be easier to rewrite all of the books. So that's one thing that you're getting. Some of the guard cards, these ability cards and things, are being reprinted. And I really like this thing that they're doing because it says on there that some of the iconography is going to be getting bigger, and the colors of the chips in the iconography is going to be easier to see. So that helps when you're adding these chips into the bag after you're doing these kinds of abilities and things. So I think that's going to be a big plus, getting cards with bigger icons on it. Some of the enemy AI cards need to be reprinted. In addition to that, some of the equipment cards, and I didn't show this earlier, but there is a box with all kinds of equipment and resources and things that you get from enemies and mining. So some of those need to be reprinted as well. Okay, some new stuff that they talked about. I showed this earlier. These event decks. First printing of the game came with 60 events in 3 different zones, 3 different areas on the map. They're adding a 4th zone, which is the water zone, and they're printing 100 new cards. So this is going to go from 60 events to 160 events. So that's almost tripling. It's more than doubling and almost tripling the number of event cards that you can get and trigger after you pull the compass symbol from the bag when you're moving along the board. In addition to that, they talked about some covers that you can put on those that will have the ranges, because you pull an event card or you add a tracker token to an event card when you're in a certain part of the map. And right now you go and look, if you can't remember, you don't have it memorized, you have to go look in one of the books to see which zone am I in again, which event deck do I add a tracker token to. The covers that are going to go on there will have information on there for you to see easily, which zone am I in, where do I add the tracker token, and that's like a quality of life improvement for the game. In addition to that, there's going to be some additional foreteller narration for some of the side quests. I have the foreteller thing for the game. I really like the foreteller thing, so they're just adding more foreteller stuff for, I believe, the side quests and maybe the caravan quest. Those are kind of things that get unlocked still very early in the game, but you don't have them right at the very, very beginning, but you get it early on in the game. There's also a what they call a rule pop website. So it's kind of like a living rule book online that you can go to and look things up easily. And they talk about a campaign tracker, so like a thing you can use on a website to help with your save state of your game. So that's cool. I'll try to put links to that in the description below. In addition to that, again, you can go look at those Kickstarter updates for those particular websites. Okay, so a couple of other things to talk about. One of the reasons they said they wanted to do this was that some people thought the game was a little grindy. So they wanted to add some things that could help if you wanted to play with less grind. So they're adding a thing that you can do on your turn when you move and you draw a skull chip from the bag. If you do not want to do that particular fight, so like maybe you're a little hurt, or maybe you're just trying to finish a quest quickly, or you're just trying to get to town so you can go to the inn or whatever, craft a new item, just get to the harvesting node, and you just want to avoid a particular fight, both of your guards can exhaust one of your action points and you just skip that fight. So it's a decision you have to make, because you don't get this action point refreshed before you actually go into your next actual fight. So you'll start the next fight down an action point, but you get to skip that particular fight. So I think that adds a cool thing that can help you, move the game along, But it's also a decision. Do I need both of these action points? Or however many you have at the time? Can I exhaust one? Can I skip past two and not have any action points on the first round of the next fight? Is that something I want to do? Maybe you're only a couple of spaces away from needing to go heal, getting to an inn or something. So it adds a strategic decision, and maybe it's more of a tactical decision, and it can move the game along, skipping some fights. Speaking of action points, another thing they're adding. So let's say we're a little bit into a particular fight, and we've got 4 action points. In the first printing and version of the game, after you used an item from your item slot here, this is what you went into combat with. So you'd use it, and this would be sent back to the supply. You wouldn't have any other items. That was it. What they're adding is that you can spend 2 action points to move an item from your satchel into your item slot. Or I guess if you already had one there, you would swap items. So again, this is another tactical decision to make during your fight. Like, should I use 2 AP action points to get a new item out of my satchel and into the spot where I could use it? Do I really need this health potion, or do I have some other beneficial item that could help me with this combat that I'm willing to use these action points on right now? I think that's another great addition to the game. It's another decision you can make during combat, and it adds more player agency to the game, which I think is always a good thing. The next big thing is changes upon death. So on this reference sheet here, and speaking of the satchel, when you would die before, everything in your satchel would be lost. You lose all of the gil, which is the gold from your bag. You get to retain your experience points. That stuff doesn't go away. But it felt even to me a little harsh to lose everything from your bag. So they've made some changes to this, and there is an updated version of this in the updates on Kickstarter. But I printed out the new steps, and we could take a look at it because I really like this change. So the guards, they drop everything in their satchel slots. So say this health potion was the only thing that all the guards have, and this is when both of the guards die, not just when one dies, when both of them die. You would drop everything in your satchel onto the node. So let's put it on a node right here. So all the stuff in your satchels would be on the map on the node that you died on. Then, like I said earlier, you lose all of your gold, you keep all of your experience points, you remove some stuff from your bag, and you go back to your last save location or to Fort Istra, which is a thing you learn about in the game. You heal back up, but then, and I really like the narrative element that they added here when they talk about this in the update, you still have kind of a little bit of a penalty because, yeah, you lost all your health, so you're still a little weakened from that fight, even though you might make it back to Fort Istra or make it back to your last save point. So you have to add 5 of these weakened chips to your bag. And you exhaust all AP. So we talked about that earlier, where all of your AP is going to be exhausted. So you're starting at a slight disadvantage when you go into the next fight. I mean, you did just get defeated, so you're a little bit exhausted, like I said earlier. So you're not going to have any AP at the very beginning of the fight. Once the first round is over, you get to refresh all of it back. And you have the possibility of drawing some of these negative chips from the bag. Now, if you are defeated again before you get back to that node, then all that stuff out there is then lost, and anything that now that you have in your satchel would be dropped on the new node. So if you do really need all that stuff that was out there, you know, maybe you did a bunch of fights and you have a bunch of really cool resources, or you went out mining and you got some ore, and you went out harvesting and you got some nice wood that you need to craft something, and your satchel was really full of stuff, both of your satchels are really full of stuff, and it's all dropped out there, you might really need to run out and try to get that stuff. So I think that is going to add a nice element to the game as well, where instead of just it all being gone and just lost forever, it's out there on the map and you can go recover it. So yeah, like I said, that is another, I think, great addition, those little changes on death. In addition to all of this stuff, they have hinted in the updates that there are even more changes to come. So I'm excited to see when the Gamefound thing launches. I want to see all the new stuff that they're adding and more explanation of all of these changes and things that have been hinted at. I think it's going to be a great thing for the game, and I can't wait for it to all be printed and to come in so that I can continue the gameplay here on the channel. I hope you got something out of this. Like I said, I do a lot of live stuff, live recording and stuff, so this is more of just like a conversational discussion. And like I said, I hope you got something out of it. If you are looking forward to this, if there's anything you think I left out that you're excited about, that you've seen coming out for this game, please put it in the comments down below. And like I usually say, I hope you're enjoying everything I put up on my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.